Evelyn dies in an unhappy marriage and discovers her child isn't her husband's. She goes back in time, escapes him, and meets Aiden, the kind man who turns out to be the real father of her child. Together, they protect the child and build a new life full of love. A voice says they want Heinil? And both of them at that. Lutz says I've cherished Princess Heinil for as long as I can remember. I humbly ask for your majesty's blessing to take her as my bride. So, I am to take my pick amongst the 5 princesses then? If that's the case, then I want her. The girls are murmuring. You mean to say that both the esteemed Lord Chater and Prince Lutz have their sights set on Princess Heinil? Indeed, the Count has been smitten with Her Highness for quite some time now. His reputation as a hopeless romantic precedes him. But after our nation's disastrous attempt to invade the empire of Triikas, the king promised one of the princesses as a peace offering, along with war reparations. To whom will His Majesty grant Princess Heinil, they wonder? Heinil thinks I already know the answer to that question. After all, I've lived through this before. Dia says, are you all right, Your Highness? The princess replies, I'm fine, Dia. Dia says, how could they think to send a heavily pregnant lady on this harrowing journey? It's beyond all reason. Heinil says it's all right, truly. I had no desire to give birth in that house anyway. Dia says, certainly not, Your Highness. How could one possibly bear a child in a home where her husband brazenly consorts with his mistress? As if all the gossip about your lineage weren't enough already, and still he insists on cavorting with Isabel, that sly fox, while his own wife is carrying his child. Heinil says, oh, come now, Dia. Despite everything, I am still grateful for this child. With this little one, all a man says I must ask you both to step out. Dia says, what? You can't expect us to venture out in this snowstorm. The man says the carriage needs repairing. You stay here. Heinil says, why must Dia stay behind? The man says, come with us, Your Highness. The princess shouts, unhand me. Have you forgotten that I carry your master's child? He says, I can assure you I haven't. Chater says, which is why I so hoped it wouldn't come to this. The princess says, my dear. What are you doing here? He says, Isabel insists on taking her place as my lawful wife, and so I have no choice. Heinil says, what on earth are you doing? This is your child I bear. Chater says, I'm afraid you and that child must go, Heinil. Then Chater pushes her off the hill, and she falls down. She cries and says, my child, my child. Dia says, oh dear, Your Highness, did you have a nightmare? With the Prince of Triikas here to collect the Empire's dues, the entire court must be feeling on edge. It's no wonder your sleep has suffered for it. Heinil says, what are you saying, Dia? Prince Lutz has come to Sal again? Dia says again, Your Highness? But isn't this his first visit? Dia says, as I recall, His Majesty promised the prince one of Sal's princesses as part of the peace terms. Dia thinks it seems His Highness is finally here to claim his bride. Heinil thinks, but that was 2 years ago. Have I returned to the past? Present day, so that's Prince Lutz Viante, the second prince of Triikas? Just look at that cold, piercing gaze of his. They say he is a relentless war hound with an insatiable thirst for blood. A man whispers if it weren't for him, we never would have lost the war, nor would we be forced to offer a peace tribute. Show. The war hound will hear you. Heinil thinks I hear he's been offered his pick amongst the 5 princesses. So, what if he has? It still won't make him the heir to the throne. In any case, I've heard he holds little power in Triikas. Indeed, that's what everyone thought 2 years ago. It is no wonder they pitted the princess who would become his bride. But I know better. Before long, the crown prince of Triikas will succumb to an illness. And in the ensuing struggle for the throne, that man, Lutz Viante, will triumph. He will rise as the emperor of Triikas, and the Sal princess who is given to him will become the empress. She remembers her past and thinks, and I will meet my end at the hands of my husband, Lord Chater. He swore his love for me, only to chase after another the moment I found myself with child. But that mattered not to me. All I wanted was to keep my baby safe. Princess Heinil says, Dia, bring out all my dresses and jewelry, would you? Dia says, all of them, Your Highness? Heinil says, we have a guest at the palace, and I must be prepared to receive him. He's here to choose his bride, after all. Dia says, oh, you needn't worry about that, Your Highness. Your future lies with Lord Heir. With 5 princesses at his disposal, I can't imagine His Majesty would choose to send you off to Triikas. Diaz says, I know he may not be the most doting of fathers, but I am certain His Majesty still wishes for your happiness in matrimony. Heinil looks in the mirror and says, right. Given the immense fortune generated by Heir's mines, my father will surely be inclined to grant him the bride he desires. And for a man of the Count's standing, courting an illegitimate princess, born of a maid, no less, is hardly an imposition. So, yes, I have no doubt I will be granted to him in marriage, just as I was in my past life. Heinil says, is there nothing more provocative I could wear? And bring me more jewels, the most lavish ones you can find. Diaz says, my, your highness. Whatever has come over you? You've always loathed drawing attention to yourself. Heinil thinks this time, I won't put my faith in something as fickle as love. I have no need for anyone's affections. This time, no one will lay a finger on you, because Mama will make you the crown prince of the empire. This time, I will change both of our fates. Heinil's mother's birthday banquet. Heinil, my dear. Heinil? Heinil said, oh, forgive me, mother. I didn't mean to drift off. What is it you were saying? Her mother said, so you've come to toast your dear old mother's birthday, and yet your mind seems to be elsewhere. Here, give that to me. Heinil said, my mother once served as a maid of the palace. After being summoned to the king's bedchamber for her beauty, she bore me, securing a place as one of his concubines, but among the other 5, she found herself leading a stifled life. Her mother said I was talking about Lord Heir, dear. I expect he will make a formal proposal any day now. All the ladies of the court, noble women and princesses alike, seem to be utterly enamored by the Count. It is a blessing, truly, that he is so taken by my daughter despite the common blood she bears from me. She thinks I had thought the same in my former life, which is why I was so happy when he proposed. Grateful, even. But now that I know what that man is capable of, one way or another, I must secure a proposal from Prince Lutz. Rumor has it that he's a bloodthirsty warhound, but since arriving in Cell, he has remained entirely out of sight. It seems he has no plans to engage in any social affairs beyond official gatherings. What grounds could a lesser-born princess like myself possibly have to approach him? Of course, today is my mother's birthday. And in my past life, there was an incident that took place the very next day. An incident I could never forget, because Prince Lutz killed someone within the palace walls. A man said, I beg your pardon. Are you accusing me of thievery? Heinil said an item belonging to Prince Lutz has gone missing, and he seems to think you might be responsible, Commander. But surely this is a simple misunderstanding. The man replied, of course it is a misunderstanding. I don't even know what it is His Highness has supposedly lost. Heinil said the item in question is a small almoner embroidered with the image of a goddess, with inlaid amethysts set as her eyes. I have no clue how he came by the almoner or why he took it. All I know is what it looks like and that this man stole it. You have it on you now, don't you? Come tomorrow, Lutz Viante will uncover this man's crime and kill him. But now, in this life, Heinil thinks I must use this knowledge to alter the course of fate. She said, rest assured, I am only here to resolve His Highness's misgivings. The man replied, I'm sorry? Heinil raised her hand and said, you found the pouch in the Western Palace, and you've simply been waiting for a chance to return it to its rightful owner, yes? Give it to me, and I will see it is returned to His Highness with a full explanation. I'll tell him I was the one who discovered it. You won't be mentioned at all. The commander said, then, if you would be so kind, Your Highness, I ask that you explain this matter to the prince in a way that leaves no room for any unfortunate misunderstandings. She gave a nod and said, of course. Consider it handled. The commander bowed and left. Heinil thinks I did it. I've never seen the almoner up close before. It's even more exquisite than I remember. It must be worth a fortune. The prince is said to hold this almoner dear, rarely ever letting it out of his sight. There were even whispers that it belonged to his late mother. If I play this right, I might gain an opportunity to speak with him. And if I could capture his interest, I might just secure a proposal, too. Lutz raised his sword and said, I had every intention of killing that wretched thief the moment I caught him, and yet here we are. Why, pray tell, would a princess of this kingdom trouble herself to protect a lowly criminal? Curiosity alone stayed my hand. Heinil thinks, but how? I didn't sense anyone approaching. She said, how did you get in here? Lutz suddenly stepped forward. Heinil thinks, those eyes, they don't seem human. Prince Lutz pushed past her and snatched the pouch and said, phew, Lutz thinks just as well I found it before someone ended up dead. Even a moment longer, and it might have been too late. Heinil thinks he's drawing his sword. Am I truly to be accused of theft and killed by him in this life? Heinil sat on the floor and said, please, Your Highness. Just give me a moment to explain. I assure you, I never sought to steal your pouch, nor to hide it away. I had every intention of returning it to you tomorrow with all due honor. Lutz said, then what compelled you to cover for that thief and seek me out directly? Is he some secret lover of yours, perhaps? Heinil said, he is nothing of the sort. I only feared that if he died by your hand over some needless misunderstanding, it could lead to another conflict between our realms. Lutz said, what a touching display of patriotism. The prince turned again and said, if you care so deeply for your kingdom, perhaps you should have spoken up before your father launched that foolish attempt at an invasion. Lutz said, I still recall the smell of the blood of the Sal soldiers I cut down, as clearly as if it were only yesterday. Heinil said, I'm well aware that we must atone for the bloodshed we so recklessly spilled in our ambition to claim Triikasian lands. My father has assured His Imperial Majesty that one of Sal's 5 princesses will be offered to the Empire as a gesture of reconciliation. Lutz said, yes. It seems Princess Selah, the true-born daughter, was too precious to part with, so he has offered the Canal City and a lesser-born princess instead. They say there are 5 princesses in Sal, each born of a different concubine. I take it you are one of them? Heinil replied, I am, Your Highness. Is there perhaps anyone you had in mind? Lutz said, no, not that I can say. I haven't given it much thought. Heinil thinks, naturally. In my past life, he chose one of us at random, as if it were some bothersome task he desired to be over and done with. From what I've heard, he has no real interest in women, so beyond fulfilling his duty to sire and heir, he hardly ever engaged with his wife. But her child became the crown prince, while mine. Heinil said, if that is the case, I ask that you choose me. Lutz said, what? Heinil said, I had planned to formally make this request tomorrow, but should you choose me, I will do anything Your Highness asks of me. Lutz smiled and said, I'll admit, it was maddening to win the war, only to be saddled with the prospect of marrying some illegitimate princess from a defeated nation, but this might actually prove to be interesting. The prince picked up the candle and, smiling, said the spoils of this war are quite unique, to say the least. A marriage proposal from a woman on her knees in little more than her underclothes. Heinil thinks, wait, my negligee. It's practically sheer. Lutz said, what are you covering up for? You said you wanted to be my wife, didn't you? Heinil thinks you'll need to do better than that if you hope to win my favor. Heinil thinking this is my chance. I must do whatever it takes to change my fate, for my survival, and for my child's. Heinil said, if leaving myself exposed is what you desire, I'm more than willing to oblige. Heinil took off the clothes in front of Lutz and said, would this be more to Your Highness's liking? Lutz said, you seem to have a knack for catching one's interest. Heinil thinks, what am I to do now? Lutz was silent for a moment, and then he hugged Heinil. Lutz said, that was amusing, I'll give you that. But I didn't travel all this way just to see naked women. Cover yourself up, before I grow bored. Let's hear it then. What is your reason for all of this? Why go to such lengths? The only reason I am keeping you alive is to sate my curiosity. Heinil covered and thinks there is a man who intends to propose to me. And my father will almost certainly give him his blessing. She said, but that is not what I want. Lutz said, then why not refuse? She replied, because I have no choice in the matter. Heinil said, unless, of course, the Imperial Prince of Triikas were to claim me as his bride first. Lutz said, you must truly despise this man. Still, it is a reckless gamble you are making. You might find yourself fleeing a tiger, only to wander right into the jaws of a dragon. I hear the rumors about me have reached as far as Sal. They say that I have always been more beast than man, my savagery unmatched. Lutz touched his lips and said, and that I become a madman in my rage, unable to determine friend from foe. A bloodthirsty fiend, who finds greater pleasure in spilling blood than in the embrace of a woman's arms, or so they say. Heinil said, it makes no difference to me. All I ask is that you promise me one thing. Lutz replied, which is, Hiniel said that I be the one to bear your child. It is a wife's duty, after all, to provide an heir. I require no affection from your highness, only your word that you will protect our child as your rightful successor. If you can promise me that, I will ask nothing more of you. Knocking the door, a voice said, Your Highness? It's me, Dia. I noticed the curtains billowing from below and thought your window might be open. Shall I come in and shut it for you? If you leave it like that, you're bound to catch a chill. Hiniel replied, no. There's no need, Dia. I'll take care of it. Meet me at the Western Palace tomorrow at noon. You'll get your answer then. At this moment the wall was torn apart by Lutz. Hiniel thinks, but we're 2 stories high. Lutz turned, saw her, and went away. The following afternoon at the Western Palace, Dia said, Your Highness, you look absolutely radiant today. What is the occasion for all this finery? Might it be that you're expecting Lord Cherish? Hiniel said, Not quite, Dia. Dia asked, Goodness, what happened to your hand? Hiniel replied, Goodness, what happened to your hand? Hiniel thinks the scratch from the almoner last night still hasn't healed. Will the prince really accept my proposal? I just can't fathom what he's thinking. He seemed utterly uninterested in me last night. I wonder if today's attire might help. I must have appeared so unkempt in my nightgown. It's no wonder I couldn't hold his interest. Hiniel's mother said, My. What have we here? I heard the palace maids were loitering about in improper attire, lured by rumors of the dashing imperial prince, so I thought I'd best come to restore order. But I never expected a princess to be at the head of it all. Hiniel bowed and said, Why, Your Majesty, greetings. And my greetings to the 1st and 3rd concubines as well. One girl said, I always knew the 5th concubine was lacking in proper decorum. She was once a maid, after all, but I never imagined she would raise her own daughter to be so vulgar. Another replied, Just look at her. First, she snared Lord Cherish with nothing but her looks, and now she's shamelessly putting herself on display to seduce the imperial prince. Hardly surprising, considering her mother used the same wanton tactics. Like mother, like daughter, as they say. All that time spent pretending to be so prim and proper, now, at last, she shows her true colors. Hiniel thinks my mother was dragged into the king's bedchamber at his drunken whim, and she has been subjected to endless torment and humiliation ever since. Perhaps that's why she so wished for me to end up with a man who won't torture me. If only she knew how I died at Cherish's hands. Pardon my interruption, Evan said, but His Imperial Highness Prince Lutz is expecting his guest. Evan bowed and said, Princess Hiniel, I presume? I am Evan Leneuve, aide to Prince Lutz. I understand His Highness has invited you to the Western Palace. Please, allow me to escort you. She said, Greetings, Your Highness. I must apologize for my ill manners last night. I neglected to offer you a proper greeting in my state of confusion. Here is the robe you so kindly lent me. Lutz said your name is of no interest to me. Now, as for your proposal, I have a few terms of my own. If you are willing to accept them, I shall take you as my wife. Girl asked, Your terms, Your Highness. May I ask what they are? Before we get to that, there's something I'd like to know. Cherish Phyll, the man they call your betrothed. Hiniel said, Am I betrothed? That's what people are saying. Lutz said he's earned quite the reputation as the love-struck count. What is it about him that you so dislike? If it is simply the title of princess consort you're after, I can tell you now, you're making a mistake. Frankly, you'd be better off as a countess by his side than as my wife. A life of marital bliss is not what I'm after. And why is that? Hiniel replied, Well, there are reasons I cannot share with your highness. Even if I were to explain, you would not understand. She thinks nor would he believe me if I told him the truth, that I was killed by that man while carrying his child. Hiniel said, All I desire, your highness, is to serve you as your wife. If you'll have me, I promise to fulfill every duty as expected of me. Lutz said becoming my wife will only afford you the empty title of imperial consort, nothing more. I will sire an heir purely out of obligation, but beyond that, there will be no such thing as shared conversations, no needless intimacy. You will ask for nothing else of me, and even if you bear my heir, the child will never hold true power. Those are my terms. Do you accept? Hiniel smiled and nodded her head and replied, Yes, Your Highness. I would be honored. Let's ask very well then. I shall make my proposal tomorrow. Hiniel replied, thank you, your highness. I will serve you with my whole heart, truly. Hiniel thinks he's acting as though he's doing me some grand favor. Let's ask, you may leave. Dia said, did everything go well, your highness? What did you discuss with the prince, if I may ask? Everyone is dying to know. I hear he invited you to speak with him personally. Hiniel said, oh, just a small matter that needed to be settled. But yes, everything went well. He is rather intimidating, but what a devastatingly handsome man. Dia asked, oh, but what if Lord Shater hears of this and grows jealous? You two are practically engaged. After all, Hiniel thinks poor Dia has no idea that I am about to become the imperial princess consort of Triikas. I can't bear the thought of taking her to such a distant, foreign land, and she would face nothing but hardship there. Dia said, is something the matter, your highness? Hiniel replied, no, it's just, the prospect of marriage has me feeling a bit nervous, that's all. Dia replied, you have nothing to worry about, your highness. I'm right here by your side. Tomorrow, I'll make sure you are the most magnificent sight this kingdom has ever beheld. When Lord Shater finally proposes, he'll be so utterly enchanted that he'll lose all sense of himself. The next day, Hiniel thinks I haven't seen this piece before. Where did you get it? Dia said, it's beautiful, isn't it? The fifth concubine was most gracious to lend it to us. My mother? Dia replied, yes. She said it was a gift from His Majesty. I thought it would go perfectly with your hair. Hiniel thinks the only gift my father ever gave her, and she's entrusting it to me. Mother must want me to look my finest today. I wonder if I may have been a bit too bold in my choice of dress. Hiniel saw herself in the mirror and said, well, I never. Celia said, if it isn't Hiniel. Celia, the king's true-born daughter. It's been so long since we last met. Why, I hardly recognized you. Hiniel said, good evening, your royal highness. Celia's friend said so. The thought of becoming a countess has emboldened you, has it? You're dressed rather differently today. Another replied, huh? Or perhaps she's afraid Lord Shater may not propose after all. Celia walked away and said, I suppose if she showed up looking as drab as she usually does, he might very well reconsider. Hiniel thinks I feel exhausted already. Shater said, Princess Hiniel, I almost didn't recognize you. You are truly breathtaking tonight. I am at a loss for words. She thinks Shater phyll. Hiniel thinks the last thing I wanted was to catch his eye. Hiniel said, Lord Shater, it's been quite a while. Hiniel walked away. Shater pulled her and said, what happened here? How did you get this wound? Hiniel said, it's nothing, really. I merely scraped myself on a branch. Hiniel thinks the scratch from that almoner left a scar after all. But why is he getting so upset? It's almost frightening. Shater said, I'll need to have a word with your maidservant. Allowing her mistress to be marked in such a way, it's inexcusable. She thinks marked? He speaks as if I'm merely a trinket in his possession. Shater said, seeing that scar on your flawless skin truly pains me, your highness. She thinks no. People are murmuring, isn't that the Count and Princess Hiniel over there? What on earth is going on? Shater said, ahem, have I done something to upset you? Lutz said, Hiniel. There you are. I've been searching all over for you. Lutz clenched his hand and said, I see you've hurt your hand. Was that perhaps my doing? Lutz said in his ear, my deepest apologies if so. What is the meaning of this? Chhatri said, I take it that northern customs are quite liberal indeed. Here in Sal, however, kissing the hand of a mere acquaintance would be deemed rather improper, especially if that acquaintance is a lady. Lutz replied, oh, I wasn't aware. But how intriguing that those who boast of their propriety should invade another's territory unannounced. Lutz clenched the hand of Chhatri and said, and now see fit to allow a mere noble to interfere. Am I to take this as a sign that your kingdom has no interest in making peace with Triikas, announcing their royal majesties, the king and queen? The king came in and said, Prince Lutz? And Count phyll. What on earth has brought about this rather unsettling air between the two of you? Lutz replied, I was told that I would be offered a princess of Sal at tonight's gathering. Let us settle the matter now. The king said to Chhatri, phyll, now you say? Chhatri said, Your Majesty. May I remind you that we have already spoken on this matter. You gave me your word that I would receive your answer today. I wish to take Princess Hiniel as my bride. Hiniel thinks that he has already sought father's blessing. Lutz said, as do I, a pity indeed. But, alas, my mind is already firmly set. The king said you want Heinil? And the both of you at that. Chhatri said yes, your majesty. I have cherished Princess Heinil for as long as I can remember. I humbly ask for your majesty's blessing to take her as my bride. Lutz said you offered me my pick amongst the 5 princesses, did you not? She is the one I want. People were murmuring. The king said, what is to be done? Lutz thinks I must tread carefully. I cannot risk inciting the wrath of the Triikasians, yet I cannot simply disregard my word to Count Peachwilel. The king said, Prince Lutz, I believe you have yet to meet each of my 5 daughters. Surely it would be wise to do so before making your decision. People whispered indeed. Why, of all the princesses, must it be Heinil? Perhaps he does not know that she is but a half-born princess, tainted by lowly blood. Lutz said, but before we settle this matter, there is one thing I neglected to address. Heinil thinks what? Lutz said, Count Peachwilel, was it? I believe the man owes me an apology. The king said, an apology? Pray tell, what has the count done to offend your highness? Lutz said, it would seem the blood I spilled in battle was not quite enough. I did, for a moment, consider setting the Sal Palace ablaze and claiming all 5 princesses and their ladies as slaves. Yet I contained my wrath at my father's behest, and now a mere count of the conquered kingdom presumes to mock the prince of the victorious. The king shouts, how dare he interrupt me? He thinks blast. A breach of peace could put us all in grave danger. The king said, Count Peachwilel, what manner of insolence is this? I command you to apologize at once. Chhatri Peachwilel bowed and said, I sincerely apologize for my indiscretion, your highness. I hope you will pardon my folly and enjoy the rest of the festivities. Lutz said, I see only one way I might find joy in this evening. Lutz hugged Heinil and said, by taking the woman of my choice as my bride. Then, perhaps, I may be willing to overlook the impudence of this lowly count. People murmured and Chhatri Peachwilel grew angry. Heinil bowed and said, your majesty, please. Her mother said, I beg you to spare Heinil. Rest assured, I bear her no ill intent. Lutz said, I misplaced something of great importance yesterday, but with Princess Heinil's assistance, I was fortunate enough to reclaim it. She has earned my gratitude, and so she will be well protected and cared for in Triikas. She is, after all, the only thing about this land I find to my liking. Heinil thinks his words are surprisingly kind. This, at least, will be easier for my mother to bear than seeing me hauled off against my will. Heinil plaqué. The king said you are to serve his Imperial Highness Prince Lutz Viante wholeheartedly. Do not forget that you are going to Triikas for the sake of peace between our 2 nations. Heinil replied, yes, your majesty. She thinks yes. It's done. Lutz thinks a real scourge on my nerves, that one. Lutz said, I admit, I do feel a hint of remorse for claiming a princess already spoken for. Perhaps we could ease matters by finding a worthy match for the count here and now. Heinil thinks Sochater is to select his bride now? The king said, a fine idea indeed. Count Peachwilel, you shall take a princess of your choosing as your bride. Your majesty, there is but one lady I desire, Lutz said, choose. Let us proceed as the count suggests, Count Peachwilel. Come now, there's no need to despair. Count Peachwilel said, then I shall choose her. Chhatri thinks, but that's, Mia, the one who was Lutz's wife in my previous life. So I am to marry Lutz. Heinil thinks has fate somehow appended itself. Heinil said my bride appears to be quite shaken by this sudden proposal. Allow me a moment to speak with her. Lutz said, I thought I gave you everything you asked for. Is something the matter? Heinil replied, no, your highness. I am simply overcome with relief at the thought of not having to marry that man. I am grateful for your generosity, truly. Lutz replied, good. Heinil said, will you be taking a brief rest? Lutz replied, it's far too hot. I can hardly keep my eyes open. She thinks he finds this weather hot? Well, I suppose that makes sense, considering Triikas is in a perpetual winter. This may very well be my last summer. She must be due any day now. Those last few weeks are the most difficult, with all that weight bearing down. Still, how marvelous it must be to know that her child will soon be in her arms. My dear child, she thinks in the past how I longed to meet you. If only I had been granted just a little more time. Lutz said, you're crying? She replied, HM? Oh, I thought you had fallen asleep. Lutz said, why? You assured me there was nothing wrong. Heinil replied, oh. Well, I was just thinking of my mother, I suppose, and the tears came unbidden. Let's reply to your mother? Would that be the concubine who looked as though she might faint when I asked for your hand earlier? She replied, yes, your highness. My mother entered the palace as a maid. She was made a concubine after my birth, but she never earned His Majesty's favor. I cannot help but fear that, without me, her life in the palace will only grow more trying, Lutz said, and that is why they call you the half-born princess? Because your mother was a maid? She replied, oh yes, indeed. Hiniel thinks it seems he's heard everything. Lutz turned his head and replied TSK. I don't care for that in the slightest. Hiniel thinks because I am a lesser princess. Perhaps I've said too much. No, he would have found out regardless. Surely, he wouldn't choose to overlook this, and to think he holds the title of king. I should think that any man who drunkenly hauls women off to his chambers is nothing more than an unbridled mutt. They all seem to take great delight in mocking you and your mother. Lutz said they all seem to take great delight in mocking you and your mother. The blame lies with that cur, yet it is the innocent who face the people's scorn. I tell you, there is not a single thing I like about this land, from the weather to its very customs. I intend to leave immediately following the wedding ceremony. I suggest you spend time with your mother while you can, for I have no plans to return once we depart for Triikas. Hiniel said, oh, yes, your highness. Lutz replied, let us head back inside then. It's far too hot out here. Well? Are you simply going to stare? Has Sal no custom of escorting a lady? She replied, and no, your highness. Thank you. And try not to cry in front of others. It will only make it seem as if I am dragging you off against your wishes, Lutz said, and all my efforts to appear the love-struck fool would be for naught. She replied, your efforts, your highness? Lutz replied, surely, you didn't think I was speaking in earnest at the celebration earlier, did you? I had to insist on taking you as my bride, despite the rumors of your engagement. Playing the part of the enamored suitor was necessary, if only to keep up appearances. I presume that is better than having your mother lamenting that her poor daughter was stolen away by some northern brute. Hiniel asked, are you concerned for my mother? Lutz replied, I simply detest the sound of women weeping. And especially not in a ballroom. It isn't as though we're at war after all. Hiniel asked, I appreciate your consideration, your highness. Lutz replied, I did not act out of consideration for you. As I am here as an envoy of peace, I had no choice but to resolve matters without drawing my sword. Now please, spare me any further fuss and go inside. Hiniel replied, yes, your highness. Greetings, your highness. A girl said, Princess Hiniel. Congratulations on your engagement. And to you too, Mia. Mia, just 3 years younger than I, the girl said, a lady of humble lineage and, like me, is quiet and compliant in nature. Naturally, our reserved dispositions kept us from growing close before my passing. Your highness, I'm sorry. Hiniel said, for what? The girl said, I never imagined that I would be the one to marry Lord Chater. Hiniel said, oh, you have nothing to apologize for. Oh, you have nothing to apologize for. The girl replied, still, you and the count were. Hiniel said, oh no, it's all just gossip. I am delighted to be marrying Prince Lutz. If anything, I imagine you must have been quite startled by the unexpected engagement. The girl said it was a bit of a surprise, yes, but I must admit that I was also quite pleased. I've always longed to marry a gentleman like Lord Chater. Hiniel said, oh, is that so? The girl said, it was just a silly dream I had as a child, really. I never imagined it would truly come to pass. The girl's name is Mia. Hiniel thinks, could it be that Mia has harbored feelings for Chater all this time? Then perhaps this has worked out for the best. But if our fates truly are intertwined, then that means Mia, too, will end up. Chater said, Princess Hiniel. There you are. Might I have a word with you, somewhere private? Hiniel said, congratulations on your engagement, Lord Chater. I trust that you will take good care of Princess Mia. Chatri said, spare me your well wishes for now. I shall accept them only once I have you back by my side. Hiniel said, I shall accept them only once I have you back by my side. This matter has already been settled before His Majesty the King. Chatri said, yes, but did you really believe I would surrender so readily? Just wait for me, Hiniel, for I will save you. You are mine, after all. Hiniel said, Lord Chater, you are clearly in your cups. I shall disregard that last remark. Hiniel thinks surely he won't come after me. Lutz came and said, "Where are you off to in such a hurry?" She worried and replied, "Oh, your highness. I was just on my way to find you." Lutz said, "You were looking for me?" Hiniel replied, "Yes, yes. I was hoping to resume our earlier conversation." Lutz replied, "What exactly are you referring to?" She replied, that is, Lutz thinking to leer at a woman already spoken for, and so brazenly, too. This simply won't do. Lutz said, "It's time I put that poor fool in his place." Hiniel said, "Pardon?" Lutz asked, "Your hand, princess." She replied, "Oh, right." Lutz said, "It appears my lovely bride is growing weary. Perhaps a dance would lift her spirits." King said, "But of course. No celebration of peace would be complete without a dance." "Very well, then." Lutz replied, "It would hardly be fitting for us to take the floor alone. Why not invite the other newly betrothed couple to join us?" King said, "Marvelous idea. Let this dance serve as a mark of unity between our two nations." Lutz and Hiniel dancing. Hiniel thinking that look on his face, "I know it is merely an act, and yet, somehow, it still makes me blush. Prince Lutz is a far better dancer than I imagined." People whispering, so it's true what they say about northern men being well-built. He certainly paints a fine picture. Hiniel thinks, so this is his way of making it clear to all who belongs with whom. If only this could prompt Sheter to finally let go, but it seems to be having the opposite effect. This may very well end up making matters worse for Mia. Lutz said, "I am starting to see why you despise that man. A vile sort, that one. His gaze could bore a hole through my head." Hiniel replied, "I'm sorry, your highness. If you could bear with it for just a while longer." Lutz said, "It is you who will need to bear with me." Hiniel said, "Why, your highness, please." "Let me." Lutz said, "Down?" "Very well." She replied, "Why, your highness?" "Your feet." Lutz said, "What is it?" "I find myself wanting a closer look at you, Hiniel. Those northern men are certainly quite bold, aren't they? Look at how he gazes at her. Don't they seem just like lovers?" Hiniel thinks, "I'm certain this is all just a show he's putting on for Sheter. And yet, perhaps it's the weight of so many gazes on us, but my heart is positively racing." Girls are murmuring, "My, the northerners are certainly quite bold with their affections, aren't they? They say he is a heartless brute with no interest in women, but his actions seem to speak otherwise. I hear he even invited Princess Hiniel to the Western Palace last night. Could he truly have fallen for her at first glance? He hasn't shown the slightest bit of interest in the other ladies. Hiniel thinks we stand before Nushkar the fire god to join these two souls in holy matrimony." Priest said, "This willow bark, which symbolizes the vitality of life, shall entwine their destinies. May it guide them upon a path of eternal blessing. May it also open a passage to the birth of new life." Hiniel thinks, "The birth of new life. I know my child will find me in this life too. This time, I shall protect them no matter what. I will not lose them again." "Never again." Lutz said, "What is it? Why are you shaking so?" Hiniel replied, "I'm sorry. I suppose I am just a bit nervous." Priest said, "And now, as we ignite it with the sacred fire of Nushkar," Priest raised his hand angrily and said, "Bring me the tears of Nushkar at once." Priest's servant, the almoner, replied, "I'm sorry. The holy water? Now? High Priest, what is the meaning of this? Has the ceremony been disturbed in some manner?" Priest replied, "I sense a faint trace of dark magic emanating from this individual, your majesty." Almoner replied, "Dark magic? But he is the imperial prince. How could such wickedness be present here and in this most sacred of places?" Priest said, "If dark magic truly resides within his imperial highness, then I am afraid this union cannot be sanctioned." Lutz replied, Well, this is certainly the most preposterous accusation I have ever faced." Hiniel thinks, the almoner. "Why is he bringing that out now?" Lutz said, "This marriage serves, in effect, as a tribute from the conquered nation of Sal to Triikas. Are we to take this disruption as a sign of your kingdom's refusal to bear its due responsibility for the war?" Priest replied, "The tears of Nushkar will reveal the truth before all." A voice cried, W8. "High Priest, this cannot be." Priest said, "Observe. Should the holy water come into contact with a dark presence, a cloud of soot shall rise. I have devoted my entire life to serving Nushkar's will. From the day I was blessed with his divine power, I have never once erred." Lutz shouted, "Behold. It would appear there is a first for everything." This cannot be." Lutz replied, "Your religious blunders are of no consequence to me. But concerning matters of diplomacy, you will be made to answer for this." Priest said it cannot be. "Let us try once more." Lutz replied, "How much more of this indignity must I bear? I would like for this ceremony to be concluded without further spectacle." Priest said, "Why yes, of course." Man said, "High Priest, apologize for your indiscretion and proceed with the ceremony at once. The prince is not to be kept waiting. Allow me to wipe your face, your highness." Western Palace Study. Lutz entered the room. She stood from her chair and said, "What on earth transpired at the wedding ceremony, your highness? I hear King Betrothal has bestowed 500,000 sons worth of gold coins as tribute. Is that true?" Lutz replied, "We must depart Sal tonight." She said, "I beg your pardon?" "Tonight, your highness." "But it is your wedding night." Lutz shouted, "That blasted old man." She said, "Old man? Are you speaking of King Betrothal?" Lutz replied, "No, that wretched high priest." She said, "Your highness, whatever happened to your hand?" Lutz said, "Better this than having my face marked in soot." She replied, "I'm sorry." Lutz replied, "After so many years in service to the divine, he seems to have a remarkable knack for sensing impure energies. He has caught on to what I am." She said, "The almoner, you used it, yes?" Lutz replied, "Naturally. I pierced the puricite through to draw its power directly. It is what kept me from being detected." She said, "Your highness, we absolutely cannot allow the secrets of the imperial family to be exposed." Lutz replied, "I'm well aware of that. Which is why we must depart at once." She said, "But your highness, should you not at least seek an audience with King Betrothal before leaving?" Lutz replied, "Sigh, in my current state? Certainly not. Find me a suitable excuse." She said, "And what of the princess, or rather, her imperial highness the princess consort?" Lutz replied, "The princess. There are more important matters too." She replied, "Your highness. So, you are to depart Sal tomorrow?" Heinil replied, "Yes, mother. The prince seems to be most displeased by what occurred during the ceremony. He has sent word that we are to depart tomorrow." Her mother said, "Well, understandably so, after suffering such a slight from the high priest, then I suppose this is to be our last day together." She thinks I had hoped to spend more time with mother before leaving. Her mother said, "Are you quite certain about this, my dear? I've heard Triikas is a cold and desolate place." Heinil replied, "Yes, mother. I'll be just fine. You saw for yourself how deeply Prince Lutz cares for me." Her mother said, "Yes, and for that, I am certainly grateful. But even so, Heinil, I wasn't sure whether I should give this to you, but I believe it may serve you far better than it would me." Heinil replied, "But mother, this is..." Her mother replied, "Yes. My brother gave this to me years ago. He claimed it would help me win His Majesty's favor, yet I could never bring myself to use it. She thinks I remember it well. After all, mother had given me this very elixir when I married Sheter. Use it, should his heart begin to stray," she had said. It wasn't long after the wedding that Sheter's affections for me began to wane. In my desperation, I turned to the elixir, hoping to rekindle his love. It was what enabled me to conceive, but once I could no longer fulfill his desires in my pregnant state, Sheter, Heinil replied, "Thank you, mother. You need not worry for me. I shall fulfill my duties as princess consort of the empire, ever by Prince Lutz's side." Heinil hugged her and said, "Please, do take care of yourself, mother. I will write you." Heinil thinks, has the prince not arrived yet? The entire delegation has already gathered. The king said, "Heinil, do not forget the role you play. You have been offered to the Empire of Triikas as a gesture of peace. Henceforth, you must lead the path to unity between our nations. I trust you will not create any difficulties in your new post." Heinil replied, "I shall do my best, your majesty." The man near Lutz thinks even now he regards me not as his daughter, but merely as a duty to the crown. The king said, and in case you hadn't heard, the prince departed yesterday." Heinil replied, "Yesterday, your majesty." The king said, "Indeed. He seems to have left in quite a temper over the high priest's blunder. Do see to it that he is appeased, won't you?" Heinil replied, "Of course, your majesty." Her mother clenched her hand and said, "You must write to me, Heinil, just as you promised." Heinil replied, "And you to me, mother." "Mia," said Princess Heinil. "Please wait. I did not expect we'd be parting so soon." Heinil replied, "Your highness." Mia said, "Please, there is no need to stand on ceremony. You are the princess consort of the empire now. If only I'd had more courage, perhaps we could have spent more time together before this moment came. If I am to be honest, I always longed for us to be closer. Yet only now, when we may never meet again, do I stand here confessing such things. How foolish I must seem. Heinil said, well, it's never too late, Mia. May I write to you? Of course. I will be sure to write you back. Heinil said, come now, Dia. Do stop crying. Dia said, how could your highness even think of leaving me behind? Heinil thinks before departing, I had urged Dia to remain in Sal, but she adamantly refused. Dia said, if you are to depart without me, it shall be over my cold, dead body. Her tearful pleas to join me wore at my resolve, and in the end, I had no choice but to relent. She thinks Heinil said, I only wish to spare you from any hardship, Dia. Don't be upset. Dia said, that is not why I am upset, your highness. It is on account of Prince Lutz. Heinil said, Prince Lutz. Dia said, what husband would dare abandon his bride on their wedding night? Regardless of how incensed he might have been, it is simply inexcusable. Heinil said, oh Dia, it's hardly worth fretting over. This marriage was never for love, only peace. Dia replied, but just yesterday, His Highness treated you with such affection. How could it all change in a single night? Heinil thinks I am just grateful to have freed myself from Shater. And she said I should be thankful he showed me any kindness at all, even if only for a day. Heinil said if he is to hold me in disdain from this point forward, then so be it. I've no right to complain, given all that Sal must atone for. She said, greetings, your Imperial Highness. Heinil said, and you are? She said, Evan Lenove, at your service. I come bearing a message from Prince Lutz. Heinil said, a message for me? From Prince Lutz. Meanwhile, at the Count's manor, Evan said Prince Lutz was indeed absent from the delegation's procession, my lord. Princess Heinil seems to be traveling alone. The prince is said to be staying at the estate of Viscount Duen. Chaudhry said, and Duen, you say? Chaudhry said, so it seems he truly did depart last night. Duen said, yes, my lord. Chaudhry said, good. Then Heinil has yet to share a bed with that wretch. Evan said, first, allow me to inform you of the day's itinerary, your highness. We will soon be crossing the canal and entering the borders of Triikas. It looks as though we will be traveling well into the night, so I encourage you to take some rest. In addition, Prince Lutz has already arrived in Duen, near the border. The delegation will also spend the night there. Evan said again His Highness sends his apologies for his early departure, as he had urgent matters to attend to. Heinil thinks in actual fact, he collapsed before he could leave me with any such message, but I suppose I must do my part to smooth things over on his behalf. Evan said, so he didn't leave me behind out of anger at the High Priest, after all. Heinil said, thank you for relaying the message, Sir Evan Lenove. Evan replied, of course, your highness. As I mentioned before, we will soon board a ship in the canal city of Visar. I would suggest your highness take a light meal, as the voyage may bring on a bout of seasickness. Heinil said, thank you. I shall. Dia said, then, it would seem His Highness did not leave in anger after all. Heinil said, yes, Dia. Does that put your mind at ease? When she reached this must be Duen Castle, she thinks is this where the prince is staying? Duen said, greetings, your Imperial Highness. It is an honor to receive you here. I can only imagine how wearisome your long journey must have been. Heinil said, greetings, your Imperial Highness. It is an honor to receive you here. I can only imagine how wearisome your long journey must have been. Is His Highness inside? I was hoping I could greet him. Duen said, ah yes. Well, you see, Evan said, Viscount Duen, let us keep the pleasantries brief. I'm afraid everyone is quite tired. Duen said, yes, certainly. I shall escort our esteemed guests inside and arrange for a meal at once. Heinil said, might, Prince Lutz be joining us? I do wonder if his urgent matter has been seen to. Evan said, your highness, there is something I must discuss with you in private. I'm sorry. His Highness was poisoned and has collapsed. Heinil replied, see, could it possibly have been someone from SL? Evan said, more likely, this was the work of someone within Triikas. Prince Lutz has always had a rather strained relationship with his half-blood brothers. Most fortunately, His Highness received prompt treatment, so his life is no longer at risk. Still, he is not yet well enough to be up and about. Heinil replied, then, his departure yesterday We feared it would only complicate matters if Sal were to find out, so we made it appear as though His Highness left in his ire over what occurred during the wedding ceremony. Evan said given the urgency of the matter, we brought the prince here first, then joined him later. I am most sorry we could not inform your highness sooner. Heinil said I see, is he better now? Evan said he is still in need of rest. It would be best for you to take the adjoining room tonight, your highness. And I must ask that you keep the prince's condition private. Heinil thinks who would have thought that someone so strong could be felled by mere poison. Dia said, did you happen to see the prince, your highness? I noticed he was not present for dinner. Heinil thinks it seems I'll have to keep this from Dia too. And said I did. He appears to be terribly busy. He likely took his meal in his own chamber. Dia said your very first night as newlyweds, and yet His Highness insists on dining alone. Surely, you are not to sleep apart as well. Heinil said perhaps. I wouldn't wish to disturb him if he is preoccupied. Dia replied well, yes, of course. But I shall keep watch outside your door, just in case. Who knows? The prince may very well come to visit you in the night. She thinks if he sees that look on your face, he might be inclined to turn right back. Heinil replied I cannot tell Dia the truth about what happened, of course, but simply having her here with me seems to make the weight of everything feel more bearable, come what may. I can only hope that, in this life, we might find some measure of peace together in the north. Heinil, sleeping in the bed, thinking it's so cold, could it be morning already? And said Dia? Meanwhile some people came and began to take the princess away, gagging the princess, who cried loudly. The men were hiding their faces and one of them said, keep your mouth shut. One word, and I'll slice clean through your artery. Heinil thinks he managed to slip past the guards and out of the castle in mere moments. Whoever he is, he knows these grounds well. What is he hoping to gain by abducting me? And where on earth is he taking me? No. If he takes me into the forest, I'll never be found. I must find a way to alert someone. Please, please. Heinil crying someone, anyone. Please help me. Outside, Evan said to Prince Lutz, your highness. You're awake at last. The prince replied, ugh, where am I? Evan said in Dwen, your highness. Lutz said, how long have I been out? 2 days now. The delegation arrived yesterday, just as planned. Lutz said, and the girl, I mean, the princess? What of her? And the girl, I mean, the princess? What of her? Evan smiled and said, not to worry, your highness. Rest assured, the princess has been escorted here without incident. The prince said, me? Worry? Certainly not. She is but a prize of war. I was merely checking that she, Dia shouted, your highness. Oh, your highness. I beg of you, please help. Prince Lutz. Evan said you are the princess consort's lady-in-waiting, yes? What appears to be the matter? Dia replied, please, it's her highness. Hick, she is. Dia bowed and cried, saying, she is nowhere to be found. Princess Heinil is missing.